And we are live. This is essentially going to be the first episode. A lot of you guys are going to know me from the Instagram page. I'm sure a lot of you people are going to know me personally. There are definitely going to be people that don't from either, hopefully. So I kind of figured that I would walk through a couple of things, who I am, where we started, everything. If I could kill a half an hour doing this, I'd be really excited about it. Any sort of like feedback at all about sound or video quality or whatever, absolutely feel free to send it, because this is the first one, right? So who am I? Sean Ramsden from Burley's Construction. I started my career as a drywaller. That's not really even true. I started as basically a laborer. Coming out of grade 9, I was like 6'2" and 200 pounds. So every idiot around was trying to get me to fucking push a wheelbarrow or whatever for whatever, like $15 an hour or whatever it was back then. So eventually I got into drywall. We were working out of town doing Monday to the following Friday, typically 12s. A couple of nights you'd get so blasted that you didn't go to work the next day, but typically we were doing Monday to the following Friday, 12-hour shifts. I was working for a guy there that I don't know how he fucking dealt with me. This is back in my 20s. So I was a big time partier. I was also the guy, though, when we were moving board, I was carrying 2 sheets instead of just one. I remember being able to hold 2 stacks of 6-inch studs because my hands would fit around them. So that'd be like 12 at a time. People weren't doing that shit. So I think for the headache that I brought on by being a pain in the ass, I was also an asset. So maybe that's what got him to teach me. Very quickly we were framing. There's this like bored monkeys, especially when you're out of town, because there's nothing these guys can do other than that. They show up, they're either drunk or high, and they're putting the board on the wall. It's simple, right? It's very easy work. The difference being, if you told them to frame, they couldn't. And then same thing, as a framer, it was real basic shit, right? This was before 90-degree lasers, and we were just using like DeWalt and Hilti dot lasers, like a plumb bob and a line laser. And the line laser fucking sucked. The plumb bobs were pretty cool, but you would kind of grab your points where you needed it. It was a nightmare. It was great to learn, but I mean, when I look at how I frame now as opposed to the way we were framing back then, night and day difference. So after a little while of that, you kind of like wrap your head around what you're doing, how you're doing it, how the proper ways are to do it, how to start doing things quickly. I must have done that maybe 2 or 3 years before I really got into the headspace of this is what I'm going to do. And then kind of when I hit that point, the prints started becoming this thing I wanted to be a part of. Leadership was one of the things I wanted to be a part of. At the very beginning, once I got good, it was this game of establishing that I was the best. I'm the fastest, I'm the quickest, I do the most stuff, I carry the most material, I blah, 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 I could drink the most beers, whatever. There was a change at one point where I was starting to be given the shitty jobs, mostly because I was asking for them. 2 things happen when you take a shitty job. Nobody fucking checks up on you, because if you have questions, you're going to ask the first guy you see, and they don't want any part of it. And you learn the best. You learn the best eating shit. There's doing really difficult stuff to the best of your ability, and then your boss showing up and going, what the fuck did you do that for? Do it again. That you don't learn better than that. So that those tables turned from I'm the best to I can do the shittiest work. And when you're the guy that people come to when there's shitty work to be done, everybody already knows that you're the best. You don't have to say it. It's not a competition. It may not mean that you're the fastest or the whatever, but it does mean you can think on your feet the fastest. You have the most patience. You're the most under control. When I got started, man, guys pitching hammers across the room was still a fucking thing. I can remember having a hammer thrown at us up on a lift, like regular shit. So as you start kind of finding your way that down that path of every shitty possible fucking thing that comes down the runway, I want it. You get given the most time to do it. Nobody else wants to do it. You end up kind of being the guy that's learning all the time. And when you jump into that lane, it becomes a totally different thing, right? So from there, I got bored. I typically, when I get bored, I don't do very well. I lose interest very quickly if I'm not being stimulated. At least I know that now. Back then, I just thought I had a shitty work ethic. So I moved from steel framing commercial work into residential. I got into custom home building under a guy that was, I'm going to try my best not to use people's names on here, but he was a 65-year-old Red Seal carpenter, and he was a hard ass. He didn't give a fuck if you didn't show up. If you didn't show up the next day, you'd apologize and he'd go, why? I didn't even notice you weren't here, you know? And like make it real clear that he didn't fucking need you there. You were just there because you needed a job. And I gravitated to that big time. So anything that he could kind of throw my way, I would try my best. And then he was real hard on you when you fuck things up. And I don't know, I guess my whole life, that's how I learn things, man. I have to do it the hard way. It has to be a fucking nightmare. I'm going to have to get a glass of water or something for next time, so I'm not coughing into the fucking microphone. The company that we were working for back then doing that custom stuff, they had awesome work. We were up in Muskoka redoing the side of like a famous golfer's fucking cabin. They had a racing team and they had all this extracurricular shit going on. Eventually, you know, I was leaving to go get everyone coffee at 9 o'clock when the check showed up to cash my check first because they were bouncing. And I kept looking at the Red Seal guy going, you know, what's your take on things? But you can't talk about it. It's money is one of those things, especially when you get started. It should be the last fucking thing out of your mouth. Because the guys that are better than you started at fucking $10 less than where you're starting at. It's just because we've been around so long, right? Yeah, I don't know. As soon as he jumped ship, I was gone. And they didn't last. Shortly after that, they were all gone. They were sending one of the guys down to get to a fucking blacksmith school to learn how to make horseshoes, and like every fucking person in the guy's family worked in the office, and my cousin's sister's the fucking salesperson, has no sales experience, and their estimator was, I don't know, the dog, you know, so everything was fucked all the time. It was no good. So when I left there, I got into doing orthodontic offices. So it was back into my wheelhouse of doing commercial work, very small, right? So for somebody to go, you know, can you build an orthodontic office worth of offices, get the board up on half, and then wait for the electricians to come? Oh yeah, I could fucking do that. After the electricians came in, you drop all the ceilings. Like, this was all real basic stuff to me, just because I thought everyone was doing that. I just thought that everyone understood how to fucking build things. And the guy that he had me working with I think the reason I got that job was because this guy got a DUI and couldn't fucking drive. So I was driving into his house to drag his hungover ass out of bed. And this was well before I understood that if you show up to work every day and somebody else makes you late, you put down your full hours. So when this guy made us 2 hours late, some days I wasn't booking them, right? Because I wasn't on site. This was well before I understood my worth on the site, right? So I was doing 30, 35-hour weeks, and eventually the boss was like, what the fuck, man? Why are your hours so much less than this guy's? I was like, what do you mean? And he was not coming to work and booking those days too. So it didn't last very long. I started butting heads with people. This was back before I had my temper under control 100%. Those were interesting days. I got back into working out of town when I was a little bit older and I was much better. And I started working again with the guy that taught me originally, and we had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Coming back, leaving as a fucking idiot and coming back as an experienced guy was big for me. I wasn't experienced like I am now, but you come back with a few war battles, and a few stories of when things blew up in your face and you fixed them on the spot. And I really do believe that that's what this is all about. Anybody can board a wall, but when something's fucked up, how do you fix it? That's kind of where that separation starts to begin, right? There are guys that just can't fucking do it. They don't know. And they don't need to ask because we fucking know everything. These are the guys that fuck everything up and then leave it. And then your taper comes around and goes, I'm not taping this. So eventually chasing girls, I ended up doing the fixes for a large framing company. They were going into like Mattamy Homes, and they were taking 300 buildings and going, we'll build these 300 houses, no problem. And in that interview, the guy said, I have really good framers and I have really poor framers. You're here for the really poor framers. They would hold back 10%. And once the deficiencies list came in, he'd go, you want your 10% or do you want to start the next house? Because some of these guys they fucked up in the beginning thinking they had done it right. So to have them go back and do it again wrong, it just was a waste of everyone's time, and he understood that. So he hired me hourly to head to the site trailer. I'd pick up my folder, and it would say, second floor door heights, check them. The master on the second floor wall isn't square. So you'd kind of take your Sawzall and cut everything loose, move it over to square, re-nail everything. We went to a site to save the guy. They were so fucked. When we showed up, it was not everybody was wearing clown shoes, but they were definitely in their car. That one folder said, reframe second floor as to plan. So we were like, okay. Point loads, massive point loads issues everywhere in houses that are already built. You're walking around, you got fucking a bunch of trades on site. A lot of truss repairs, just stuff like that. And then I started getting so efficient at doing that, then we were running out of stuff to do. And I told them I'm not getting any slower, right? I'm not interested in that. So you need to find me more work, or I'm going to have to go find more work. And they started letting me back frame houses, which was something that I've never seen before. We had definitely built bulkheads in steel, but that was just what commercial is, So when you see a house, you frame the house. I had done that, but back framing a house, and no. You can make a lot of fucking money back framing a house. I told them I'd do it hourly. just because it was fun, you know, I was learning. And when you fuck things up and you're doing things hourly, somebody along the line there is making a bag of money on you. So they're like, yeah, man, no, not a problem. Just go fix it. Because you probably got paid $400, you know, on something that would have been paid out $1,200. And you know, you fuck something up and you got to go back another day. So they're still making 100% off of you. And that was a lot of fun. So I eventually down the road got very good at solving problems, thinking on my feet, being creative as to how to do things. And then also understanding that, like, if this is fucked, we can't leave it like that. It's gonna fail. So figure it out. And, you know, I still see it now when I build something, it is like way overkill. It's not, you know, I'm not putting in HSS beams when there doesn't need to be one, but I mean, I like to use LVLs. You know, I like to PL things together that don't need to be PL'd together if I don't ever want them to come apart. You know, going crazy with hangers and things like that. When I'm packing things out, I do it properly. You know, just because the prints say to do something, that's a minimum standard. If you feel like it needs to be beefed up, you speak up about it. You talk to the person that you're reporting to and go, you know, this will work for a bit, you know, or if you see issues arising from the other trades, like we were doing out back of townhouses. As you come up to that main floor, you head out like a kitchen door, and there are these patios. Well, those patios have to be built up, and you put your edge around it with water drain off and all that other kind of shit. And if you're not building those properly, there's nothing for the banisters to screw into. Like that, I think they were asking for like 2 2x6 tied together, and what the fuck is that going to do? If you miss with 2 of those, that's only half as strong as it should be, right? So we were like packing 12 inches of scrap material. We're running the fucking site. So, and he had me doing it. So it wasn't like they were being paid some incredible amount of money. But when we were doing stuff like that, there weren't any callbacks ever. Everything was just like cock solid all the time. And, you know, there would be comments of like, it's way overkill. Yeah, I don't ever want to do it again. So from there, I started working with a guy that I think he hired me on a whim, and it just worked out. It was, he was getting tired of fucking babysitting people, and I was getting tired of being babysat. I knew what I was doing. I was tired of people swooping in and saying that they was their ideas and that kind of shit, and guys coming in at the end of the day and going, yeah, you know, you did a great job here, but like, there is no but. I knew how much I was making everybody. I knew where my skill sets were. I knew I could do the guy's job above me. I just didn't want to. I wanted to be on the tools. I always want to be on the tools. So, you know, I'd get texts at night from this guy, and he would be venting essentially of what we were going to walk into tomorrow. And instead of like contributing in the venting, I would put like asterisks, stands up straight like a superhero, you know, or something like that. Something to the tune of like, I have it handled in a smart ass way. And that's kind of when I fell in love with doing difficult shit. You know, I've always been in my head, always. So when I'm doing something that takes my full attention, I'm in love with it. It's that quiet that comes with that is very hard to, it's very hard to find outside of situations like that. And, you know, the first time that he asked me if I had my cape today, you know, did you bring your cape today? I knew that it was going to be something really shitty. And I fucking smirk. Yeah, I absolutely did. You know, oh, can you crawl your big ass up into a finished attic space in a house that's been fucking insulated because nobody did the truss repair, or just really things that nobody wanted to do. There was no way. And I really started falling in love with that. It's you start to feel needed, like you are a part of that team, because things are going to happen if not, or it's going to be a headache. And it's nice to be appreciated, right? It's nice to have somebody at the end of a day or end of a long week go like, this is a crazy week. And then you're like, yeah, it was, and it's over. I did that for a bit. And we had the site super walking around with him one day, and they were having a conversation, and the site super looked over and asked me if I brought my cape today. And I was fucking hooked. Like, this is a guy that I should never even be talking to. And yeah, I got all kinds of favors for guys like that. So then I was able to branch out and do funner things. Driving booms on my own and moving material some days, like, hey, we're kind of in a pinch here. Can you hop in a machine and go deliver stuff? Yeah, I can fucking do that. That would be way funner than sitting in this house cooking in the summer. So then I kind of felt like I needed to stop working on my own. I've been a solo guy forever. It's been very difficult to find somebody that wants to do the shit that I want to do. One, because it's miserable, and two, because I make it fun. You make a game of everything. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life until it's done. So let's do it as fast as you can and then fucking move on with your day. So I started taking guys on, not personally, but like I found a foreman position, and training new guys. Nothing feels like that. Not when you find a good one. When everyone's going to be a pain in the ass. 1 in 10 they're keepers, man, and they're worth the time that you put into them. And you get to fucking ride them and talk shit the whole time. Being in a lift and going, you're down there, you're going to cut. I'm not cutting, you're going to cut, and I'm going to just install. Right? Because typically, if you're the better guy, you're going to be down on the floor cutting, and you're throwing material. Let's go, let's go, let's go. What is taking you so long? Let's go. And you get guys used to installing, and now you're in control of how quickly they're installing, and you're also in control of how many fuck ups there are. Because if you're cutting everything correctly, there are no fuck ups, and you just have the guy install. Typically, if he's on a lift, you need a ground guy. So, I would have the apprentices on the ground cutting for me, and I would absolutely be abusive. Waiting on you, man, I hope we're done here today. It's there's nothing like that. I was never in a lot of sports teams, but I imagine that kind of like bullying and like shit talking, it's a team atmosphere, right? You are building relationships, doing stuff like that. And that's how I learned. That's how I learned the best was when somebody was telling me that for some reason I was much slower than everybody else. And I don't understand why you can't be as fast as everyone else, knowing full well you're twice as good as these idiots on site. But, push. It's guys are either going to fall apart or they're going to stick it through. And the guys that stick through, man, that's a special thing to be a part of. The downside to that is now your management. So all the office horse shit, all the picking up material, all the picking up guys, showing up for guys that don't fucking get out of bed that day, knowing that your guys are hungover and then taking the brunt for their fuck up because, you know, if you're honest about it, they're going to get fired, you know, like things like that. It's not fun, you know. I wasn't going to go backwards though. I worked for a guy on a very large project. He was like a house framer or something stupid, and he was the site super of a $30 million building. He went to the same church as the owner though, so that was his qualifications. Took a couple of weeks to smell that one out, where, you know, you'd have conversations with him and he would just be like, uh-huh. And eventually I was like, have you done any of this before? And he was like, no. So I was like, okay, everything inside of this trailer, emails, phone calls, horseshit, meetings, that's you. Anything that happens outside of that trailer is me, because you don't know what you're fucking doing out there. And if you're giving guys shit over stuff that you have no idea about, you might be wrong. And now you're just beating up on guys because you're frustrated. Shit's not going to fly. You know, the guy would come out of his trailer with ideas of how things could be done better. Well, okay. And you would build it that way, and it would be the scraggly fucking, you know, without the experience of knowing how to build things and why things don't work. It is way more about why things don't work than how they do work. If that makes sense to people out there, like, why don't we do it this way? Because this will happen if you do, as opposed to this is the way it should be built. And then you just, you know, this is how we regularly do it. That worked real well for a while, until it came down the pipe that everything that I was doing that was a positive was being relayed to the boss as his fucking achievement, and everything that was fucked was my fault. You know, the guy that I was working with on that, we were there typically Saturday and Sunday, and we were putting in 12s to catch up the site. We're having the rest of the team drive themselves in because there were just not enough bodies of capable people on site. So we took that on. We took it on. It was our responsibility. You know, we asked for help, and they sent us laborers from the home building side. Like, if it takes me more effort to babysit idiots, then I'm not going to ask for any more idiots, because it actually is less stressful when your guys aren't here helping. And that's what we did. But this guy that we were reporting to at the end of the site, there was this moment where it was like, okay, now you say thanks for all the stuff you did, you know? And he didn't. So I brought it up. I was like, and thanks guys for all the extra hours you put in, and all the time with your kids you missed, and all the sleeping in on Saturdays and Sundays that you didn't get to do. And his response was, you didn't have to do that. Nobody asked you to do that. And I was floored. I was fucking floored. We built that building for him. You know, my Brad Hanna fucking taped that. I brought Brad in. Like, we pulled their ass out of the water on that. And it was like, you know, you didn't have to. Nobody said you should. I don't know why you want any sort of like a thumbs up for doing that. This is a company, and you should really be focused on the company and making things more efficient. You know, let's worry about the next site. So I was done pretty much that moment. When I talked to the owner, I said, I'm not working with him again, period. You can move me on to something else if you want. And effectively, we got shifted over to the home building side, and it was a disaster. Doing concrete. The fuck do you have me doing concrete for? So we were done. Shortly after that, I started looking into being a site super because I knew that I could do a better job than this idiot, and I could. it's it again is one of those situations of it's not how you do it, it's what you do when the shit hits the fan. And I that was my entire career, was figuring that kind of stuff out. So I took it on. Why not? And I worked for a guy that wasn't boots on the ground at all. He had a major investor, and between the two of them, probably never built a deck. So there was no conversation of why won't this work? It's why isn't it done? And I got that. I understood that. When you hire somebody on for a position and they say they can do a job, you expect them to do the job. I think they were paying me $30 an hour to run sites. It was a fucking joke. And when you got ahead on your site, instead of taking a long weekend, they would send you to some idiot's site to push broom and catch them up on their shit. And the second day that you're supposed to be there, that super doesn't even show up because he knows you have it covered. And it wasn't a good place. So a little ways down the road, a headhunter. So at that point, I will kind of interject and just say, I was starting to build myself a little bit of a reputation. By this point, I don't fuck around. If things aren't going correct on my sites, people go home. Yeah, go home. I don't give a fuck. Right? I'm not going to have you do it incorrectly. The prints say to do it this way. And if you want to argue about it, go home. A couple of times I was like, send me an email that says that you don't want to do it. Go ahead. And I'll have somebody else come in and do it. And then you find the most expensive fucking person that you can, and you drown that fucker, because there's no better feeling. You may have won the argument because I allowed it, but I'm going to take a huge chunk out of what you're going to make here because you're an asshole. And I did enjoy that a little bit. It's kind of that last draw thing. Anyways, I have a headhunter call me, and he offered me something like 86,000 salary and a vehicle. And I was going to be boots on the ground, site super. And then he was going to buy me a set of Columbia tools, and he was going to allow me to do the framing, boarding, taping, because that's all I wanted to do, man. Like once I got into running sites, it's a lot of fun, right? Because you get to choreograph the dance, right? It is a dance, right? And once you get good at it, everything kind of comes and goes, and there's an appropriate time for things to step in, and there's an appropriate time for things to step out, and it's very smooth when you know what you're doing. But having drywallers and framers show up to my site that were fucking terrible at their job was painful. Arguing with tapers, like, I can see these fucking joints. This isn't done. Well, this is how, it's usually acceptable. And, it's just a whatever, a booster juice or whatever. Well, no, it's not. It's my site. So I knew I wanted to get back on the tools, but I knew I didn't want to report to anybody anymore. And that's what I said in the conversation with the headhunter guy. He said that he would allow me to do as much of the work as I wanted to do. We would sell out all the rest. There'd be a bonus structure in place. It would all be on this side of the Toronto, within an hour of the house. I got a vehicle, tool allowance. Like it was a good deal at the start. And then when I picked up my prints, it said Sudbury. And holy fuck. We went from having a discussion about me building sites here to living in Sudbury to do this job. And I took it as a test that, is this guy going to bitch about everything that we send him to, or is he going to go do his fucking job? And that's exactly what I did. Like I went and and built that booster juice. I framed it, boarded it, taped it. I cut all the concrete myself. I put all the concrete back in. I did all the T-bar sealing myself. I helped with the flooring. I helped with the tile. Yeah, solo. When we got there, we didn't have a timeline. I had no project manager. All of the financial stuff was out of pocket, and then I would be reimbursed at the end of the week. I was buying his material. And then he was paying me back at the end of the week because he didn't want to set up accounts. By about halfway through the site, I was like, something's wrong here. And he was never shy with the money. But about 3/4 of the way through the site, there was this like looming feeling of we're running out of time. And now everything went from I'm a superstar. And I saved emails saying we would be so fucked without Sean here, because one of the major issues as soon as I got there was the plumbing came into the building. When you have a building like that, where, you know, you'll have like a Chapters and a Costco and a couple of, you know, dog food place or whatever, somebody owns that building. And again, we're not going to use names here, but we all understand who these big companies are. And then they lease space and they go, what is it that you need in your space? And, you know, a company like the one that I was building for would say, you know, we need plumbing, we need water, we need gas, we need whatever, right? And that all comes in the lease. They sign the lease. When the owner of the building hands everything over, there is plumbing, HVAC, you know, gas, a drain, you know, a water main, things like that. And the plumbing drain at the top of it, the top of that slant was 2 inches down from slab grade. In the concrete. It wasn't even below at all. So we had a big trench system. There was 4 sinks going in, a full bathroom. There was all kinds of shit that needed plumbing. And we weren't going to be able to do it because with the gradual incline for drainage, I think we were a foot above the concrete once he did all the math in the furthest area, like the furthest clean out. What a fucking nightmare. So I went and had dinner with the plumber and said, well, you know, what do we do here? And we came up with the idea of it's basically an evacuation pump, things the size of a 50-gallon drum. And everything goes into that and then it fires it out. So you don't need this crazy drainage. It forcefully will do that. So then you dig down as deep as you want, do everything properly into the evacuation pump, and then the pump sends it. Well, there was this big piss up between the owners of the building and the guy that I was being hired by and the client. So I called the client and I said, listen, send me your fucking contract over here. And I'll go through it and just see, because we're now burning time. We lost a week on that issue over 10 grand of just old men bitching about money. Like they weren't providing what they were saying that they were providing, and that bothered me. So he sent me over a copy of their contract. And then I went around with a fine tooth comb, all the fire separation issues that I found, all of the plumbing issues like we talked about. The slab wasn't as thick as it should have been. Like there were fucking issues. And I sent back detailed pictures in an email. Here you go, right? The guy's, he's not provided you what this contract says. Use this as leverage and let's fucking get going. And it worked, right? That all goes back to that whole doing things properly and you know, not allowing people to go, well, we're not going to do that. Well, yeah, we are. So Anyways, I had all these emails that stated that I was doing so great, blah, blah, blah. I kept them. And then as soon as the shit started to hit the fan there, everything was my fault. Everything was my fault. I even went through the timeline that I like every single day. I write down what I did, and it's a journal, right? You have to keep a journal. The guy that taught me how to be a site super said your job consists of two things. Finding a reason for everyone to stay at work today, because typically if you're the site super, guys are going to come onto site and go, we can't really work today because something isn't ready for us. And then the other thing he said was take pictures and keep a journal like the lawsuits tomorrow. And I have ever since, because it makes sense. It's who gives a fuck about the company that you're working for? It's you personally. If somebody wants to come at your integrity, you have to have the facts, because if you're sitting in an office and then people are pointing their finger at you and you're going, you're fucked. So I went through all of my books and I wrote out, these are all the reasons of that. And I wrote it down as how we got fucked on the top as the note heading. And, we were given 8 weeks to build this thing, but travel time wasn't even a part of that. We were losing a full day of travel every week, because half of Monday and half of Friday was travel. So you put that over 8 weeks, that's 8 full days. There goes the first week. The second week for the plumbing issue, poof, gone. The fact that I showed up on site and there was no fucking trades yet. I said, when's the plumber get here? And he goes, I don't know, find one. Find one. What are you talking about? Right? So I go through all of that, and I think that I've done him a solid, right? And I wrap up all the stuff that I need to do, all the difficult stuff. And his crony comes up to help. And eventually he says he's going to come up and check everything out. And in the back of my head, I thought for sure that he was going to bring up a bonus check, and he for sure did not. He showed up with a fucking Lincoln Town Car and fired me on the spot. This isn't working out. He didn't say anything else. That Town Car couldn't even hold all my tools. So my 3-step and some of my Columbia gear, my grinder. Anyways, there was quite a bit of stuff that I was supposed to get back later, and they just fucking stole it. This guy was a fucking shyster. And I was kind of impressed that I didn't smell it out at all. It was an absolute blindside, and I didn't think that anybody was going to be able to do that to me anymore. And he absolutely did. It was crazy. It was crazy. You pick up a contract in Sudbury, and you're based out of Toronto. So what do? You go to a headhunter, and you say, I'll pay you in 3 months if this guy works out. And he goes and finds you an awesome guy. You promise him the world, and then he goes and builds you a site by himself. I can't imagine the amount of money he made on that. And then he's within his 3 months, and you fire him. And then when the headhunter shows up to get paid, you go, I'm not paying you. Fucking, what are you going to take him back? I fired him. And then when the plumber comes to get paid, you go, what? I'm not paying you either. Everybody that I wasn't call, I got phone calls about that site for like 6 months. Two of the companies took them to court, and the drywaller framer that I still like to use on the bigger sites, he got fucked too at a different one of his sites. It was insane. I'd never seen somebody like this. I had a very long car ride home that day. I had all my shit. My Instagram had started kicking off. The one thing that I liked about the Sudbury job was it showed me I didn't need anybody else. I could project manage. I could run a site. I could keep what I felt like were timelines. I could interact with the trades. I could do all the emails. I could do it. I could do all of it. And I had a fucking blast doing it because there was nobody else up there. You know, I would go in at 6 a.m. and meet up with the trades, and then they'd be done at, you know, whatever, 2 o'clock. I'd go home, sleep for 4 hours, come back, and it was Instagram time. This was back before Brawley's Dad Construction, when it was just Brawley's Dad. And you know, that was the first time that Columbia ever reshared my stuff. I was cranking the music because nobody was around. It was the middle of fucking winter, you know, and you're in a muscle shirt filming yourself building a commercial space on your own. It felt really cool. And then I don't know, I feel like I kind of built a little bit of a reputation doing that. We work hard here, you know, and that was actually the birth of Brawley's Dad Construction. For a couple of reasons. The Instagram page, for one, because I had this fucking weirdo starting like it. He liked a few pictures of my kids, and I really fucking didn't like that. And it might not have been a creepy thing, but it was the end of that. So I started Brawley's Dad Construction. I had people watching my stories already. We had content coming out. You know, it was trash. It was pretty trash content, but it was still a lot of fun, right? And that's where the Brawley's Dad Construction Instagram came from. That's where it was born. And on that drive home, my cousin reached out to me, and he said, "What are you doing next week?" And I was like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. And it's weird sometimes where, you know, he and I'd spent a little bit of time, like very minute amount of time. We had a big Canada Day thing that I made a fucking ass of him. I think I drank like 30 tall boys or something, and I made an absolute ass out of myself. But I walked away from that situation going like, this is a solid group of guys here, and I wish I could spend more time with my cousin. He's quite a bit younger than me. You'd never know it now that we're older, but you know, growing up, there was an age gap for sure. And I could just remember going, I wish I could spend more time with him. And then when that phone rang and it was him, and it was like, "You want to come to work?" It was a sign, man. And you know, I remember I got to work that first day, and we shotgunned Reign energy drinks because I had been like everything but smoking them out of the can at this point, because I was running basically double shifts when I was out of town. It was all energy drink fueled. We shotgunned the Reign energy drinks, and we got to work. He runs an agricultural farming, like fence building company, and I'd never seen that before. You know, you pound posts into the ground until they're deep enough that, you know, a fucking rhinoceros could run into it, and it's not going to go anywhere. And then you put up oak rails, and it was hard work. That first site, I remember carrying, I don't remember if it was 2 or 4 16-foot oak rails, and they're fucking bouncing as you're walking over a terrain that's going to snap your fucking ankle at some point today. And I was sore the next day. And, you know, I came back in, and there was no complaining from him. So there was no complaining from me, you know. I finished off the rest of that week. Maybe it was the weekend. And on the third day I called in because my back was fucked. I got into a car accident real bad. Trying to think of how many years ago that was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. A lady wrote my car off while I was in stop and go traffic. And the guy to my, like behind me to my left, hammered on his horn. And I kind of went like that to look. And then, so I was braced and twisted and then got smashed. So, you know, if I overdo my back, it's pretty fucked. But you stretch, you know, you do what you can to help it. Deadlifts, planks, you know, like there was a lot of work to do, and we got over it. It was fine. But yeah, that first week, man, that was a lot of work with Jonathan. But there were discussions that week of like, why are you going to go back to work? And I was like, well, what the fuck else? What do you mean? Like, what else am I going to do? And he had been running his own business, doing this farm fencing thing. And he's like, it's easy, man. Go to work hard. And that was the birth of the company. We were kind of like business partners. Well, we were business partners. We were swapping days out back and forth, and you know, we like gravitated to this like Avengers feeling of like, you know, calling someone in for an assist. You know, that first year, at the end of the year, I got him one of those Captain America shields with a, you know, Raleigh's dad construction fucking MVP of the year plaque. And then the next year, when I was fucked in Barrie, I had gotten myself into some shit, and I was in trouble. And he showed up, and he had sewn a Captain America shield on. Actually, that was the same year. Fucking talking like we're a 5-year company. But he showed up to site for an assist with a Captain America shield sewn onto his pouch, and it, you know, it was one of the coolest fucking things that ever happened on one of my sites. And then we kicked ass. Yeah, it's been a good ride, man. And if you stay humble and you take your ego out of it and understand that you're going to eat shit for a certain amount of years, nobody wins off the bat. You know, that's why they tell you there's a couple of years here that you're going to lose, and you can keep your company open, I think, for 2 years without saying that you made any sort of a profit. I thought that was going to be for tax reasons, but that's because you lose your ass on the first 2 years of owning any business. Yeah, it was good stuff. So I don't really have a timer here set up, but we got to be getting close. I think I hit everything I wanted to talk about. What's next? All right. So basically the podcast, what we're looking to do here is this is going to just be a long form conversation podcast. This isn't going to be, you know, an industry fucking podcast of, how do you do your butt joints? Oh yeah, me too. Okay. And like, what variation of whatever, like we will get into that kind of shit when people are passionate about it. But I believe that this podcast is just going to be people talking about the things that they're passionate about. You know, I go to the gym. I'm a father. I've got a good relationship with my family. I enjoy what I do. I've dabbled in just about every part of the construction field. So I feel like I'm just going to find things that we click on with the people that come in, and we're going to talk until it's not cool or fun anymore, and then we'll fucking call it. That's what this is going to be. So it's not going to be a big industry-led podcast. I'm sure we're going to have guys on here and girls on here that want to talk about work the whole time, and that's great. That's I think that's going to be a positive thing for the community, but I think there's also a lot of people in the community that just want to come on and shoot the shit. The first person that we're doing this with is Josh from High Cut Drywall, and we're going to put aside 3 hours, grab a case of beer, and just start shooting the shit. You know, if we get to the end of the 3 hours, that'd be great. I think we're going to have a hell of a buzz on by the end of it. We're going to have a lot of laughs. That's more of what I'd like to get into with this podcast than talking about tips and tricks in the industry. You know, like I'm not going to be shy about sharing tips and that kind of stuff, but I'm going to wait for them to show up organically. I just think it's the only way that we're going to have this thing work in such a way that people that aren't in the industry are still going to want to try and listen to it. We have an excellent following on our Instagram. Kind of right now, last couple of days, we've got 109, and then today was 97 people watching the stories. That's a lot. For me, that's a lot. I kind of forget sometimes that it's out there. I obviously don't look at who it is anymore. Like I did at the beginning. Um, Instagram takes a lot of time, man. If you're worried about who's watching and who's liking stuff, you're not fucking putting in the time that you need to on your content, man. I would much rather spend an hour putting content together than a half an hour seeing who liked what and who watched my stories today. And I've never been fond of cheerleading. I don't need it. I don't need the motivation to go to work. I just need the work to go do. Right. And, I think we're going to find a lot of people like that. And I think we're going to touch in on a lot of people from my past jobs. About 20 people that I've formally asked, is this something that you want to be a part of? And it's a resounding yes. I absolutely want to do that. Right. And there are people, that have started their own companies that have branched off. And I think those are going to be ones that we're going to try and stay specific, right? Get a little bit of exposure out for some people, not to say that there's going to be exposure from this, but what I mean is, we're going to have snippets. We're going to have little clips. I'm going to chop little pieces of stuff up and put it on TikTok. And we're just going to see how far we can push this and still keep it fun, if that makes sense. I think I've got a couple of subjects that I'm going to do on my own. And then I've got a couple of subjects that I'd like to hit with specific people. And like I said, we got about 20 people that want to come on and do guested episodes. And I think that's going to be really good. So welcome to the podcast. We still don't know what we're going to call it. It's I'm kind of leaning towards like Brawley's dad experience or Sean Ramson experience. I don't know, talking shit. I think at some point here, we're going to go on the Instagram and we're going to ask, what does everybody else think? And then about the fifth comment that says, go fuck yourself. I'll be back at square one, but we'll see. Anyways, I think this has been a first good one. And I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of a better idea of where I'm coming from and my strengths and